time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Welcome back to another round of Brandy. Scott and I are talking about coffee. We consume probably
we consume way
gallons.
too much coffee in this office. Well, it's almost, I think I probably should just come up with like an IV drip system at my desk. I could just plug in and I'm good to go all day long.
You'll need a catheter too, though. Or a bedpan at least. But first, Scott, he saw actually a very cool little bit of news that has to do with Blockbuster and what they're doing.
Yeah, so I guess Blockbuster, as we all know, they folded. It's a brand that it was a brand of yesteryear, it feels like. In the movie rental, physical movie rental, pre-streaming era, and I think there's one left in the United States.
Alaska or something.
No, I think it's Midwest, I think.
Oh.
But yeah, it's the last one of its kind, and the guy has no plans of shutting it down. But it is what it is. They're coming back, but they're doing like they're getting into entertainment themed amusement or I don't know exactly. They haven't really broke into the details, but this just broke the news the other day. It's just the fact that they've announced that they're coming back. Blockbuster Video is coming back in some form, but
after the block being busted.
I mean,
for
is it going to be an
Blockbuster.
amusement park? Are we going to have like a Blockbuster? Is it all movie themed? I
could
don't know.
see, this becoming just like we talked about before, where you have this trend of experience economy that Joe Pine wrote about in a book called that back in the 80s, I think. And he's been now all over the place helping businesses kind of transform to more experience focused. And these brands, I think they're seeing an opportunity to actually go, okay, not just products and services anymore, but being able to actually provide an experience. I showed you, I sent Scott and a couple people it was Light Bright, the classic toy from, when did that toy first come out?
Well, I
70s?
think it came out in the 60s. I mean, I had a Light Bright in the 70s.
I had one growing up, but like super cool toy, disappeared, just became retro. But then they created this experiential environment that's all light bright LEDs, kind of like the Sensario experience.
Art museum,
we have.
kind of like you go from
experiential
huge
art museum,
full wall like displays, like creative paintings, almost all done with Light Bright.
And that's kind of it's you got Meow Wolf and brands like that do that. And so I think Blockbuster's wanting to lean into what they represent, but that's what's hard though, is that like Scott and I were like, they don't have any IP.
Yeah, all they have, I mean, other than clearly the very, very strong brand presence, right? From every rental box to the signage to the logo, without anything, you just show a yellow ticket with that yellow and blue. It's a pretty iconic brand. But without them actually paying royalties to, let's say Universal, they'd have access to all of Universal's movies. I mean, it's not like you're going to walk into, let's say they create a hypothetical. Let's say Blockbuster said, hey, we're going to open up a speakeasy bar, right? And you're going to walk through what used to be what looks like an old video rental thing. And, if you go into this aisle and you pull out this little plastic box, a wall opens up and in you go. How do you do that without having Back to the Future movie poster or something, or whatever? Like, how do you do it without movie IPs present?
Yeah.
And are they willing to shell out the money to be able to do that? Or are they going to create something that actually is going to become popular? And most movie, Disney and all these others, right?
Yeah.
They're going to want Warner
Disney
Brothers. They're all going to want a piece of it and want to be able to have their
IP.
commercial property through the same channel. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, and the writing's on the wall because Netflix announced last year their Netflix house, and that's going to be an experiential. They had like a picture of it, almost like a warehouse where you walk in, and then it's all their IP, Stranger Things.
Right, but that's, you could do, Stranger
which
Things
they have
house.
the IP,
And I know for a fact. I mean, Stranger Things is dropping on Broadway later next month officially. Like it's opening its Broadway run.
Broadway,
the Stranger Things on Broadway. Anyway, it's a whole new story and everything else.
Stranger Things, the musical.
It's sort of musical, but it's supposed to be technologically very advanced on what they can do in
Harry Potter
theater, and it's basically it's like the first Shadow, I think it's called. So it's not with the original Stranger Things character. It's going backwards in time to when all of this. If you follow Stranger Things, how it all started. Anyway,
that's brilliant.
So when the movie studios are driving this, but here's a distributor of all movies going to be doing something and resurrecting their brand in a way that's going to be with experience.
I'm trying to think of a parallel. It'd be like
It'll be interesting
UPS
to sit back and see.
It'd be like UPS opening an experience where it's the middleman helping deliver, which I think it's all brown and like you wear short shorts and tall socks.
Short shorts, brown short shorts.
But
speaking of experience, okay, that's what we're talking about today in today's episode of Brandy, right? We're talking about brand experience, but from a particular side. We started to mention coffee, and there's a reason for that, right?
Right. So I recently, I'm a big Starbucks person. I like my coffee dark, robust, with nothing in it. And I like it, sludgy and just very, very dark.
Sludgy.
And so I went to an independent coffee shop to support them and paid $5 for a drip coffee. Then after I finished my coffee, I go up and I'm about to leave. And I go, hey, do you top off here? And the girl had no idea what I was saying. And so I clarified, no, could you refill or do you guys top off the coffee?
You had a to-go cup?
Yes, to-go cup. And I point out the cup. And she goes, well, you can get a refill for, it was like $2 or $2.50. And I was like, I'm okay, because there was a line. I was like, I just want to get out of here. Okay, no problem. And so it kind of hit me. I'm like, my expectation of my experience with coffee, my ritual with coffee, right, is that, oh yeah, I can get topped off with coffee. Coffee is just kind of, it's just dirty water. I can just keep drinking it. It's about volume for me, right? That's my expectation and my perception of coffee. So that alters and impacts my experience. So
you drink eight cups of water a day. It just filtered through.
Dilutes. Yeah, I just eat raw coffee beans now, whole beans. So it really brought to my attention, or it was just an interesting example, I guess, of how you could have someone like myself who, no, this is how coffee, this is how you treat coffee. Coffee is robust. It's really not this artful thing. I do appreciate that side of it, but I do just appreciate coffee in general. I'll drink hotel coffee. I'll drink, coffee from anywhere really.
Diner
coffee. Yeah.
Diner coffee.
But to me, each of those are framed in their own experience.
Exactly. It is. Like if you go to Denny's or something, right? And you're
Right.
ordering a
It's
Grand
like-
Slam breakfast, and you're ordering coffee, and they come over repeatedly, right?
Yeah, and Jerry Seinfeld has a funny bit about it. He goes, coffee is the one thing that everyone's just always trying to give away. They're always saying, do you want more? Do you want more coffee? You go to the diner, here, let me top you up, and then they'll fill it. They won't even ask you.
Yeah,
they'll
one
fill
sip,
you
and they
up.
come back and fill that, you replace that sip,
So probably I'm probably conditioned from that, but also, then you do coffee as a commodity, right? It's just dirty water. It's very simple. Is that then you do have another side of it where
it's a little more elevated than just dirty water. I mean,
it's like tea.
Yeah, but tea's tea.
It's dirty water.
Well, okay, yes, it is.
But then you have another audience who they appreciate the art of it. They appreciate, oh, this bean is from here. It's been roasted like this. There's a whole story. There's romanticized. It's very wine like esque.
The barista
experience, yeah,
right?
it's very
house roasting
and they want that drip experience and just kind of like how it's framed like that. And they're willing to then probably pay for, hey, I want a refill of that bean milk or instead of coffee, it's like some elevated name, and it comes at a premium. And so, and then on the contrary of this, even Starbucks, they just announced they're bringing back the free refills that they've had for decades, and then now they're bringing it back. Yeah. But it just kind of was to me an interesting look at going, oh, you do have a single offering here where yes, it can be changed in the way it's prepared and the way it's delivered and packaged and the quality, true. And then you can have these different sides of the market. So even, a business or a brand, no matter the size, you can argue the same thing, is that yes, you could sell, let's say a car, a Honda versus a Bentley. It's like, they both got four wheels. They get you from point A to point B. Yes, the experience, the packaging, the quality, everything about it is totally different. The story, how it's sold, how it's delivered. But you do have different sides of the market, which the functional, just like drinking coffee is functional, the functional delivery or the functional attribute of the offering of getting you from point A to point B is exactly the same. It's just how the brand, how the business frames it and positions it, packages it, and then prices it. And so that was kind of just something that I was like, that might be a good example to bring up on the podcast because A, we love coffee, and there's just kind of, it's something very simple of an offering, and you already have polar opposite, markets within that one offering.
Yeah, and it's interesting because everyone's experience is different, and even expectations of experience. Some people go, well, yeah, either you're going through the drive-through for coffee, right, taking a coffee to go, Or you are taking a coffee, and if a lot of people go into a Starbucks, let's say, and get a coffee and leave.
Right.
It used to be that you would go in for hours, sometimes an hour or two, to meet a friend for coffee at Starbucks, or people go there to study, right? Or do homework, or to meet, or work remote even. And they would go up and have a couple cups of coffee during the day. And it became this kind of lounge idea. And then recently Starbucks kind of like reeled that in and went super like, we're going to be about efficiency. We're going to really cater to online orders and online pickup. And they've redone their interior space. Couple local Starbucks here have kind of removed a lot of the extra seating that they used to have.
Yep.
And I think they were finding that to be a mistake, because now all of a sudden they're kind of, I believe they're kind of reverting that back to creating more of environment space that people can come and want to hang out. It's kind of that idea of even color palettes. You have a fine dining experience. You have certain color palettes, of rich color palettes, because psychologically it makes you calm and relax, and you want to stay there. You go into a fast food restaurant, it's bright colors, it's visually alert, and it makes you want to go and leave. So there's that approach, and similar with coffee. But I think the experience-wise is, for instance, if I go into a very high, let's say a hypothetical Michelin guide restaurant, right? And I'm ordering a full meal and everything, and at the end I'm getting a little dessert, and they say, would you like some coffee? Yes, I like a coffee. And I know that's probably going to be an expensive coffee, and it's going to come in a very elite coffee. It's going to be good coffee, right? It's and I had the expectation that I'm going to have this coffee, and not once are they going to come, would you like a refill? And I'm going to be under the expectation that should I want a second cup, right? I'm going to order a second and be expected to pay for that, because that's part of my experience and that's part of my expectation. If I go into a Denny's and I want a cup of coffee, I'm expecting them to come every 2 seconds. I'll take one sip, they fill it back up to the rim. And that keeps me going for the whole time at Denny's. But that's the expectation. Right?
Yeah.
But I think what we're trying to do, and something a brand can do, is when you start breaking away from what everyone expects, that's one way to be distinctive, right?
Yeah.
If it's a good service. I mean, hypothetical, should that Michelin star, they come by and they go, can we top off your coffee? Like they would if I leave for the bathroom and they come by and they see a napkin on the table and they fold it up and it's waiting for me to come back. That's a special touch of hospitality a lot of Michelin guide restaurants have. That would be, wow. Now, even greater, they exceeded my expectation, right? It's all about expectation, I think, of the experience that consumers have with brands, and brands need to be aware of what those experience expectations are.
Well, and I think to that point, it's up to the brand and the operations of the business to set those parameters, to show, hey, this is how we do things around here. And yes, that's done through, cups, plating, tapestry, the pricing, everything like that. And my point with this coffee shop is that when I got my coffee, it came out of one of those large thermal things, whatever you call it. It comes out of there, right?
Do you have to hand pump?
Exactly.
Until you reach that area where there's air, it's like,
so I get the coffee,
and like splurting out, and you're like you go to a wedding, or it's the classic wedding reception, and there's coffee over there, and you go either decaf regular, and you're pumping into your cup, and it's like it just kind of shoots out air, and mostly drops. You're like, what is that? Everywhere. You're reaching the bottom of the barrel.
And so she gets it out of there, and so then right away. Right, that's a bulk. If it would have been a drip coffee, if she would have done it like in a little kind of like, okay, this is a drip, or I don't see how they get it out for this type of coffee, then that would have changed my expectation of the top off. The top off. The refill would have been, oh yeah, that makes sense. I would pay more because it was a drip experience. Not just squirt it out, turn around and squirt it out of the thing, and then I can be on my way.
Like a pour over, that's a one-time thing. You're not getting a top off on a pour over,
exactly,
or some other thing, or a cappuccino, or any of those other,
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like I'm going to go.
Kind of a refill this espresso. You take one shot of espresso, kind of a refill, and expect a second free shot of espresso.
And I think it's part of the experience where you are setting the expectation. You are helping the customer adjust their expectation by showing, no, this is how we do things. Like when we go to a nice speakeasy and they do have cart service where they're actually, it's this presentation rather than going, oh yeah, we got a pre-mixed whatever cocktail. Here you go. It's old fashioned, and they pour it and give it to you. Yeah. Totally different, right? It could be the same darn thing and they just made it the night before. But the cart service, that elevates it and sets the expectation of, oh my gosh, this is special. And I get that, yes, for efficiencies and things like that. But I think if you're going to be charging $4 or $5 for a black coffee, you might want to frame it a little a little nicer. I don't know. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
and just be mindful of things, because really, like, even like I would think, let's get off topic of coffee, and let's talk on the flip side of something else that is a common refillable commodity in eating out and dining experiences, and that's soda.
Yeah.
You go and order a soda, right? You go to let's say you go to a pub grill, right? And sport games are on, and you're ordering burger and fries or wings, whatever, and you get a large Pepsi, right?
Pepsi.
Coke. Well, I'm just throwing, I don't know why I threw Pepsi out there, because actually I'm a Coke drinker myself. That is weird. Actually, no. I'm an RC Cola.
Yeah.
If there's Colas out there, you know what I'm talking about. RC Cola is the best. It's harder to find though. Anyway, a lot of times if I'm out someplace and I'll ask, hey, do you do free refills? A lot of times, because if I'm there for a while and I'm ordering a soda, let's say I'm driving and I'm not going to be drinking, then I'm going to get a soda with my lunch and hang out with it. Then are there free refills and stuff? And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, there's it's $3.95 for a fountain drink, but $2 refills, as opposed to just free refills.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even the approach of, instead of me having to order the drink, oh wow, I just ordered a drink and there's the
fountain.
I can go choose. I can do kamikaze and do like a little bit of everything across the board, or whatever. But I think those are the things that coffee. And I get it when you're a coffee house. That is the main thing you're selling, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some pastries, maybe some actual bean coffee, but mostly you're selling coffee drinks. And you've created an environment and everything. But the simple experience and the expectations of what your customers are wanting, and can you find ways to exceed that?
Yeah.
And ask yourself, even something as simple as a refill on a drip coffee. Now, granted, a specialty coffee, but if you offer drip coffee, which a lot of places, most of these smaller independent coffee shops that open up, they offer that, and it's a simple thing, but it can go a long way with your customers.
Yeah, and I think it does come down to the framing of it. And with sodas, it was almost frustrating when the soda fountain is behind the counter. There's almost like this, I think all fast food, I think the people should be liberated and have the soda fountain, not behind the counter.
Liberate
they should have the freedom
sodas
to refill.
Oh my goodness.
But it's, I think it does come down to, like we always talk about, the experience and brand and the perception. And yes, it could be not just the, when we think of experience, I think sometimes we do zoom out and we look at this huge customer journey or this like umbrella of the experience, instead of going, no, it can be something as simple as that, something like a coffee or an espresso.
Yeah.
It's like framing that as a special little tidbit of that experience.
Right.
Like if you did go to a nice restaurant and you ask for an espresso and they give it to you in a paper cup, it's a different experience than if they give you a little teeny cup.
And I think to note there, I think what it comes down to is that if you are managing your business solely through business eyes, through a business filter, and not putting on the branding filter, right? To look at your brand and how your business is strengthening and growing your brand. If you look at it just through the business, then you are going to look at profit and loss. You're going to look at cost of goods, and you're going to look at going, that coffee cost me money. I'm going to charge for that. Right. I went to one place where it was a nice restaurant. So there were certain, we had expectations and stuff, but we ordered these like bougie French fries. My wife asked for some ketchup, and they brought a nice little side of ketchup, right? They charged me $2 for the ketchup. And I got the bill. I paid it. It's not that, I'm like, what? Okay. Something like that is where there's certain, again, could the business owner look at, ketchup costs money? The labor to wash that little side dish with the ketchup in it costs me money. I'm going to pass that. I'm not going to absorb that. I'm going to pass it on to the customer. From the customer's standpoint, it's more of, I think what it boils down to, like for me, what I realized in the moment when I was paying the bill was that my experience with this particular establishment, it's this brand, made me feel like it was truly and solely transactional, not relational. that they didn't care about me. We don't align. We don't have the same values. All those things that, as the business engages with the customer, right? That's the relationship. It almost like they didn't care about the relationship. It was for them. It was just like, it's a transaction. We're doing business. This cost me money. I'm charging you for that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna absorb that for the sake of the relationship. And we preach from the mountaintops, in order to grow a great and successful brand, you have to be willing to invest in the brand, invest time, invest talent, meaning good creative. Don't just have anybody do your stuff. Make sure you're aligning yourself and your brand with people like in our industry, people like us that do this for a living. And so you lean on the people that do things well, and then you're willing to invest time and money. You've got to be willing to invest money into your brand. It's going to be an investment for the future and an investment for tomorrow, but it's going to lift up the perception, it's going to lift up the experience, and it's going to lift up the relationship that you have with your customers. And I think that really, when it boils down to, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's one of those epiphany moments, like you're talking, all of a sudden it like clicks, and you're like, that's what it boils down to. Top off, right? Free refill. It boils down to, are you treating your brand just like a business, and it comes down to dollars and cents, right? Or are you treating it like a relationship, and you're going to go out of your way to make the customer feel like you care, you're willing to do the neighborly thing.
Well, you're just not nickel and diming them.
Exactly. You're not nickel and diming, because, and you are, if you are truly looking at it from a business standpoint, where you want to be as profitable a business as possible at the end of every month.
Yeah. And really, it's like, even your receipt with the ketchup, the $2 ketchup, it's like, okay, now it's just an itemized list. Then you're giving your guest at the end of the meal, here's your itemized list for our commodities, our goods that we brought you. It's not even a service anymore. Now they've reduced themselves down to just goods, and that's far below an experience. It's like at the end of the meal, it should have been an experience, and very, very brief on the receipt of what.
Although I will say that I do appreciate when they do, because serve staff, even with all best intentions, even the nicest restaurants, right, can make mistakes, and things can be accidentally added on. So there have been times when I go out and I'll look and go, wait a minute, we only had one round. We didn't order some beer, and some beers got tacked on the bill, whatever. So I'm glad. I'm glad a restaurant doesn't just hand me going, here's your grand price, here's your grand total, right? Yeah, $123. And you're like, wait, we had an app, we had 2 entrees. How many rounds of?
How much ketchup did you buy?
Yeah, no, because we want to. There is confirmation, so we're not saying this, but it's about, like you said, itemizing every single engagement the customer had with your brand, and getting it down to dollars and cents of every aspect, whereas some of those things just bake in.
Right. Because then they might come back. You're going to have higher retention. They might bring a friend, so then you double your actual sale, and the overall. And again, to wrap it up, it's businesses, they think in transactions, they think in cart purchases, they think in totals, when a brand thinks in lifetime value of the customer or the relationship. So you're investing in that relationship. How do I get them to come back? How do I get them to tell their 2 friends? How do I get them to bring their family? And you're investing in this relationship in the total lifetime value of that buyer. Because you then over, let's say, like we talked about in the Netflix episode, is that Scott's lifetime value with Netflix over 20 years is a couple $1,000 when he's paying, $9.
And it ain't worth jack squat apparently to that, because they're still raising my rates along with everybody else.
They're still milking
them for a year, or 20 years.
But it's again the experience, and don't be afraid to let your customers top off.
It's going to just make for a better, like you said, in the end of the day, you may not serve the best coffee in town, but to your loyal customers, because you've focused on your brand, they perceive it as the best cup of coffee in town, and that's where they're always going to go every single day. Right. That they need coffee, they'll go to your establishment because it's their favorite, right? For best. Other reasons, maybe outside the actual product.
Yep.
Because that relationship, they've perceived it as the best cup of coffee.
That's actually because the experience and the expectations are there and they align. That's a good wrap up to it. But thank you for tuning in on this episode of Brandy. We appreciate your support, and if you could actually share the podcast or this episode with someone you might know who you think would get a kick out of it or just find it interesting, we'd appreciate that. But and until next time, cheers.